To focus, because we're trying to work a little bit mostly on the residential side of things, a good question that I get a lot that I just want to hit kind of quickly is fixed versus variable and open versus closed.
Right. So open versus closed is a quicker one. So open just means you have no penalty to pay off the mortgage at any point.
Yeah.
That's rarely needed.
Yeah.
Also, it comes with a much higher interest rate.
Yeah.
The only time that's relevant is like, in my opinion, say you are flipping a property, you're only going to have it for 3 months or something. But even then, so there's also where you can get a secured line of credit.
Yeah.
And a secured line of credit is open just by automatically.
Yeah.
And then it's not at the astronomical rate that an open mortgage is. It's just more limited in that a line of credit can only be up to 65% of a property's value.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas a mortgage, you can go up to 80 if it's like an investment property, let's say, right?
Open and fixed means like open term. How long do I have to be committed to this mortgage product?
Right. So
it's open. You can terminate it early without penalty. If you have a fixed one that's say for 5 years and you terminate after 1 year, the bank's going to say, hey, you owe us the remaining 4 years of interest. But there's a trade-off for this. Right?
Yeah, well, the rate's cheaper. But so here's in our opinion, the often the better way to go. If it's going to be like a 1 year thing, let's say, you could do a 1 year fixed term, which means after 1 year you can pay it off with no penalty. But it's really hard to time things that accurately. So if you pay it off in 9 months, you'll still have a penalty. And if it's not ready to be paid off or sold in a year, then you have to renew. And then 3 months later you sell it, you still have a penalty. So what we would usually suggest to mitigate penalties is just a variable rate mortgage, which I'll come back to that part of your question. But a variable rate mortgage, one of its features is that it has the smallest possible penalty to break.
What's it, 3 months?
3 months worth of interest whenever you break it. So you don't have to worry about like, am I 3 months in? Am I 3 years in? Doesn't matter. It's 3 months worth of interest, period.
This is why, again,
which is relatively small in the grand scheme of things.
I'm not rate sensitive, right? A lot of people are rate sensitive, like, oh, this one's 2.19. Oh, this one's 2.14. I'm going with the 2.14. I just smoked you guys, right? Like, and if you walk and say, give me your best rate, they're gonna be like, all right, here's a 5 year closed product that you can't port and like it's gonna have all these things, but we're gonna give you the best rate. To me, it's all about having the conversation with your broker of, what are your goals? Well, my goal is to be in and out of this property in 12 months. And what are you going to do after that? Are you going to buy another property? Because if you are, then maybe we can port. So you need to have a mortgage product that's portable. And what does that look like? And how do you top up if the new one's more expensive, et cetera? But if it's like, no, I'm just going to turn it and burn it and I'm going to go to Europe for a year. It's like, okay, you need to look at a variable product or something like this because you're going to kill all your profits.
The other thing too, so that's a good point about rate. So the analogy I use, like people ask, well, I want the lowest rate. And I try to reframe that and say, you want the best deal. And rate is one big, admittedly, part of that. But when you go shopping for a house with these guys, you don't say, I would like to buy the cheapest house, please. Like you have other criteria. And then obviously budget is part of that.
That's a good way of looking at it.
But here's a quick example. It's really important. So a variable rate, again, 3 months worth of interest is the penalty. But how is that calculated? So say you have one bank and their variable rate is 1.5. And you have another bank and their variable rate is 1.4. They both charge 3 months worth of interest. As a penalty. Great, 1.4 is better. But not necessarily, because so what one bank may do is charge 3 months worth of interest at your actual rate. So let's say it's 1.5.
Oh, yeah.
The other will charge 3 months worth of interest based on the prime rate, which is 2.45 currently, which is 1% higher. Suddenly your penalty is a lot greater. Right? So, you know, there's
fine print.
is crucial.
I say, you know, for most investors, I think it really makes the most sense to go with open variable style product.
I think so.
Because I have a lot of them that are like, oh, sweet, like we got this duplex, we're going to lock it in 5 years, we know what we're doing. And I'm like, you say that now,
you're going to change your mind.
You're going to change your mind that either you don't like dealing with this investment,
I want to refi,
or you want to refi and buy another place. So I'm always hounding it. I made that mistake on my very first multi-unit. It's just a 3-unit. But I was actually getting some advice from another person who's an investor, and he's like, I have one piece of advice for you, and that's go with an open variable product because you never know what you're going to do. I was like, I know what I'm doing. I'm doing a fixed 3-year, no problem. Rate's the bomb. I did it, and literally like a year and a half later, I wanted to go refi, and it was a huge mess of like paying them out. The penalty was insane. And I was like, okay, now it totally makes sense. And so all my investor clients, when they ask, I'm like, let's go with something that's open and variable. I know
it's just flexibility.
You need the flexibility in this business. You got to remember, you're running it like a business. Unless you have like you're buying like a single family and you intend to live there for a super extended period of time, I just very infrequently find it makes sense to go with the fixed.
So I agree. So just to add, so you asked about fixed versus variable. People love making these sweeping statements, especially like, again, someone's buying their first home and they've got their dad and their coworker in their ear and their uncle did this. And that's, so people love to say,
it's true.
you know, people love to say like, you should always go fixed. It's better. Or like verbatim, people will say you should always go variable because historically it outperforms the fixed. Yep. Word for word, people will say that.
I've heard that one before.
I've heard that true. And it is technically true, but there's so much more in it than that.
So to me, here are a few factors. One is, what are you doing, right? So like if you're an investor, especially if you're, well, it doesn't matter. If you're a first-time investor, I always say to clients, what if you don't like it? What if a year later you realize you hate being a landlord and these people are like ruining your life and you want to sell? Let's mitigate that cost of the penalties, variable.
Yep.
Or if you are doubling down like you guys and we all are doing, saying, no, I'm not selling, I'm going to keep going. Well, statistically, compared to the person who lives in their suburban home for 20 years, the likelihood of you breaking your mortgage because you're selling, refinancing, whatever, is huge. Yep. So minimize that piece. So the only time I'll make a blanket statement is to say a variable for rentals is better. The other thing is, why not go with a variable, right? Like in general, why not? Well, it could go up, right? Like that's the fear. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's not your money. Your tenants are paying for it. So your cash flow will decrease, but still it's not like coming out of your pocket. It's not coming out of Chandler's lunch money, right? Like you still have peanut butter for breakfast. You'll be okay. Yeah. Also, the interest on a rental property is tax deductible, 100% tax deductible. Yeah. So if the rate goes up and your interest increases, well, at least so does your tax deduction, right? Yep. So you have a mitigating factor that a single family personal home doesn't.
Yep. These are all great points.
So for the flexibility, the tax deductibility, it makes sense. For a personal home, it then depends, like if it's just a person buying a house, it depends on their financial picture. It depends, I would say, on the difference. So sometimes, say a fixed rate is 2 and a variable is 1.9. All right, for someone buying just their home, fixed probably makes more sense.
Yeah.
But right now, a fixed rate is in the low 2s and a variable rate's in the low 1s. So that's appealing because yes, there's a risk of it going up,
a big gap again.
But your initial savings are significant.
Yeah.
Also, if someone's got a good down payment, good job, maybe they make bonuses, they're in a trajectory where their income's growing, they can probably stomach a variable better. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Someone putting, first-time buyer putting 5% down, that's the bulk of their savings. They've got 2 kids in daycare.
And they don't have a lot of predictability of
income.
Wage increase.
Probably fix is probably better for them, right?
Yep.
So it's case by case. And that's the problem with these blanket statements is you should always do this. No one should always ever do anything.
Yeah.
And it's also the person telling you that blanket statement is usually very well-intentioned. And what they did, because I did a fix. Well,
it's based on their personal experience that this was
also
well for them.
12 years ago.
Yeah. And also it's a transactional, this is the product we have right now. This is what, you came in saying you want the lowest rate. It was okay, well, this is this, and we're not going to delve into it anymore because I've got another appointment in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
We're just going to wrap it up.
I was at a bank a little while ago just doing banking, and they banks are now, they have the tables where they're open, and someone was having a mortgage appointment that I was eavesdropping on, just sitting in the middle of the bank branch with someone.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, well, what kind of rate do you want? And the client was like, I guess a fixed one. What do you got? And the guy was like, the 4-year is pretty good. And he was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. I just wanted to shake him. Be like, is where's the advice? Your card says financial advisor. Yeah. Advise.
I make my decision on whichever bank has the free iPad.
Oh,
right,
yeah.
That's important.
Free iPad promotion. I forget about the extra $25,000 I'm going to spend over the next few years, but I'm getting an iPad on closing day.
When I was broke, I had rich habits.